Love that defies all rules, magic that defies nature, and hearts that defy fate. There's something irresistibly haunting about the tales of witches and love. The air shivers with a strange, electric thrill when we hear their names whispered in the dark. Their stories are painted in shades of longing and sorrow, brushed with the cruel strokes of curses and tragic endings. Witches, feared and misunderstood, stand on the edge of the world, always reaching for something they can never quite hold. In the twilight, where the light fades and shadows grow long, the stories of these women linger. It's not just the magic that sets them apart, but the aching humanity of their desires. They are often depicted with power that seems limitless, spells that can alter reality, potions that can heal or harm, eyes that see through the veil of time. Yet, despite all their magic, there's a part of them that remains painfully human, bound by the same yearning for connection that defines us all. Imagine a heart that knows no boundaries, a love so fierce it defies the laws of man and nature alike. But in the world of witches, love is rarely pure, rarely simple. It comes with a price, one that is often paid in tears and blood. Forbidden love weaves through their stories like a relentless curse, pulling them towards lovers they can never truly have, or worse, lovers they can never truly trust. Take Circe, the enchantress who lives alone on her island, her beauty matched only by her sadness. She has the power to transform men into beasts, to bend the very elements to her will, but when she meets Odysseus, she sees in him a flicker of something that she's been denied: companionship. It's not his strength that draws her, nor his cunning. It's the simple, human need to not be alone. In him, she glimpses a kindred spirit, a weary traveler, far from home. But even as she lets her guard down, she knows that their love is doomed. He is a hero destined for glory, she, a sorceress shunned by the gods. Their love, though passionate, is fleeting, a stolen moment in a life of solitude. He leaves, as heroes always do, and Circe is left once again on her lonely shore, staring out at a sea that never seems to answer. Then there's Medea, whose love for Jason burns like a fire that consumes everything in its path. She defies her family, betrays her own people, and uses her magic to help him win a kingdom. She does all of this in the name of love, believing that he will see her worth, that he will love her as fiercely as she loves him. But when Jason grows tired of her, when he seeks a new life with another, Medea's heart doesn't just break, it shatters into 1,000 pieces, sharp and deadly. In her pain, she turns to the only thing she knows, her magic. She unleashes a wrath that spares no one, not even her own children. Medea's story isn't just one of love lost, it's a chilling reminder of how far someone will go when they have nothing left to lose. In these tales, love is not gentle or kind. It's wild, unrestrained, and often reckless. It's the love of Morgan Le Fay, whose heart beats for Lancelot, a knight who will never be hers. She watches him from afar, her magic swirling around her like a cloak of shadows. Morgan could command the elements, change the course of rivers, even call the dead to speak, but she cannot make Lancelot love her. Her heart, though filled with spells and secrets, remains hopelessly bound to a man who can never love her in return. She becomes the villain in the stories of Camelot, not because of the darkness in her heart, but because of the love she cannot control. These witches are not just characters in old tales, they are echoes of a truth we all know. Their forbidden loves are a mirror to our own fears and desires. To love is to risk, to open oneself up to the possibility of pain. But for witches, this pain is amplified, wrapped in layers of magic and curses that turn simple heartache into something far more sinister. Their love stories are marked by betrayal, vengeance, and sometimes, a longing that never finds peace. The theme of curses weaves through their stories like an unbreakable chain. A witch's love is rarely free of complications, it's tied to ancient prophecies or tangled in the threads of fate. When a witch loves, it's as though the universe conspires against her, as if her very power is a beacon for tragedy. In many tales, a witch's love is both her greatest strength and her most fatal flaw. It's what makes her powerful, yet it's also what makes her vulnerable. Think of Hecate, the goddess of witchcraft, who walks the crossroads between the living and the dead. She is a figure of immense power, guiding lost souls and holding dominion over the moon and stars. But even she, with her vast knowledge and unyielding presence, is said to have lost loves that haunt her. Her legends speak of a sadness that echoes in the night, a longing for something beyond the reach of even her formidable powers. In the quiet moments of these tales, there's a deep, resonant sorrow, a reminder that magic cannot fix everything. Witches, with all their spells and potions, cannot simply conjure love that lasts. They cannot escape the weight of their own hearts, nor can they outrun the fate that seems to shadow their every step. Their stories are tinged with the bittersweet truth that love, for them, is often a source of pain rather than joy. And yet, there's something undeniably beautiful in their defiance. Witches love in spite of the curses, in spite of the forbidden nature of their desires. They love boldly, even when the world tells them not to. They pour their hearts into the very thing that might destroy them, clinging to the hope that maybe, just maybe, this time will be different. These tragic romances remind us that love is not always kind. Sometimes, it's messy and complicated, full of twists and turns that we can't always see coming. Witches, with their forbidden loves and cursed fates, show us the raw, unfiltered side of the heart. They love with an intensity that burns through the pages of time, leaving behind a legacy of longing and heartbreak that still resonates today. On a lonely island far from the eyes of gods and men, Circe lived surrounded by the whispers of the sea and the wild songs of her enchanted beasts. Her palace, filled with strange herbs and bubbling potions, was a place of both wonder and sorrow. To many, she was a powerful sorceress, a force to be feared, but beneath the enchantments and spells lay a heart that had been alone for far too long. Circe's magic could change the shape of any creature, bend nature to her will, but it could not change the one thing she craved most, the touch of a soul that truly saw her. Then came Odysseus, shipwrecked and weary, his eyes carrying the weight of long battles and the endless pull of the sea. From the moment Circe saw him, something inside her shifted, a spark in the darkness that she hadn't felt in what seemed like lifetimes. He was no ordinary man, not to her. There was a strength in his gaze, a fire that reminded her of the days when she, too, believed in things beyond the reach of her magic. Circe had been used to men coming to her shores, drawn by the island's strange beauty and promises of rest, only to find themselves at the mercy of her spells. She had turned countless sailors into swine, her magic a defense against the betrayals of those who saw her as nothing more than a prize or a monster. But Odysseus was different. When she raised her wand, ready to transform him as she had done so many others, he resisted, holding up a sprig of moly, an herb that made him immune to her magic. For the first time, someone stood before her not as a victim, but as an equal. It was in that moment, with her magic stripped away, that Circe felt a pang of something she thought she had long forgotten, hope. Odysseus didn't look at her with fear or disdain. He looked at her with curiosity, with a kind of weary respect that only a man who had seen the worst of the world could offer. In him, Circe found a kindred spirit, someone who understood the loneliness of being different, of being caught between two worlds. They were both exiles, both searching for something that seemed forever out of reach. In the quiet of her halls, where only the winds and waves could hear, they shared stories of their sorrows, their triumphs, and their losses. For the first time in a long while, Circe felt seen. But even as they grew close, there was a distance that neither could cross. Odysseus spoke of Ithaca, of his wife Penelope and the son he longed to see again. His heart, though touched by Circe's kindness, was anchored to a home far away, to promises made long before he ever set foot on her shores. Circe knew this, and yet, she couldn't help but wish that perhaps he might stay, that he might see in her a new beginning rather than just a stop along his way. She brewed potions, not to enchant, but to heal. She offered him comfort, not as a sorceress, but as a woman yearning for connection. In those brief moments when the world seemed to pause, Circe allowed herself to dream. She imagined a life where she wasn't alone, where the days didn't stretch endlessly like the sea around her island. She saw herself beside Odysseus, not as a captor or a temptation, but as a companion. They laughed together, their voices mingling with the songs of the birds and the rustling of the leaves. Circe, for once, let her guard down, her heart opening to the possibility that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't destined to be alone forever. But dreams are fragile things, easily shattered by the harsh light of reality. Odysseus, ever the hero with a destiny to fulfill, could not stay. The call of Ithaca, the pull of his old life, was too strong. He spoke of leaving with a heavy heart, his eyes lingering on Circe with a sadness that mirrored her own. She knew he had to go, that his story was not hers to keep, but letting him leave felt like losing a part of herself she had just begun to find. On the day Odysseus set sail, the sun shone brightly, the sea calm and glittering. Circe stood on the shore, her hair whipping in the wind, watching as the ship that carried him grew smaller and smaller until it was nothing more than a dot on the horizon. Her heart ached with a pain that no spell could soothe. She had given him her love, her trust, and in return, she was left with the same empty halls, the same quiet solitude. But now, the silence was heavier, filled with memories of laughter and soft conversations that echoed against the walls of her mind. Circe returned to her palace, her steps slow and her eyes downcast. She moved through the familiar rooms that once felt like a fortress but now felt like a prison. She tried to lose herself in her magic, to find comfort in the routines that had sustained her for so long. But everything felt different, touched by the brief light of something she knew she could never have again. Odysseus's absence was like a phantom, a shadow that followed her, reminding her of what could have been. Her beasts, once her only companions, sensed her sorrow. They gathered around her, their eyes soft and knowing. Circe, the great enchantress, knelt among them, her heart heavy with the weight of her loneliness. She had loved, truly loved, and yet, she was once again alone. It was a loneliness that cut deeper than any spell, more painful than any curse she had ever cast. Circe's story is not just about a sorceress who turned men into beasts, it is about a woman who, despite all her power, could not hold onto the one thing she truly desired. She remains on her island, her magic as potent as ever, but her heart forever marked by the touch of a sailor who could never stay. And though she may have been feared and misunderstood, in those moments when the waves whisper against the shore, she is simply Circe, a soul searching for a love that is always just beyond her reach. Love can make a heart soar, but it can also lead it to the darkest depths of despair. Medea, a powerful sorceress, knew both extremes, her heart fiercely loyal and her magic unparalleled. Her story begins not with curses or spells, but with the simple, all-consuming desire to be loved. When Jason arrived in her homeland of Colchis, seeking the Golden Fleece, he was not just a hero on a quest. To Medea, he was the embodiment of hope, a promise of a life beyond the confines of her father's kingdom. She saw in him not just a man, but a future where she was more than just a witch. From the moment Medea laid eyes on Jason, her heart was no longer her own. She loved him with a passion that defied reason, with a loyalty that went beyond all sense of duty. Medea betrayed her own father, forsook her family, and even used her magic to help Jason win the Golden Fleece. For Jason, she faced dangers no one else dared to confront. She brewed potions, whispered ancient incantations, and wielded her magic to shield him from harm. Every spell she cast, every risk she took, was for him. In her eyes, their love was the kind that could conquer anything, a flame that would never burn out. But love, as powerful as it is, can also be blinding. Jason, with his golden promises and charming words, became the center of Medea's world. She left everything behind for him, her home, her people, her very identity. She was no longer Medea of Colchis, she was simply Medea, the woman who loved Jason. Together, they fled to Corinth, where Medea bore him 2 sons, their lives intertwined like the roots of an ancient tree. For a time, it seemed that Medea's sacrifices had been worth it. She had a family, a place by Jason's side, and the love she had so desperately sought. But as the years went on, Jason's gaze began to wander. The hero, once so full of passion, grew restless, his eyes turning toward the throne of Corinth and the power it promised. And then, without warning, he shattered Medea's world. He told her he was to marry another, Glauce, the daughter of the king, a union that would secure his place as the future ruler of Corinth. Jason spoke of it as a practical choice, a necessity for his ambitions, but to Medea, it was the ultimate betrayal. He wasn't just leaving her, He was erasing everything they had built together, everything she had given up for him. Medea's heart, which had once beat with fierce love, now throbbed with the raw pain of betrayal. She had been his strength, his savior, and now, in his pursuit of power, she was cast aside like she was nothing. Every promise, every whispered word of love, turned to ash in her mouth. She begged, she pleaded, but Jason was unmoved. His dreams had changed, and Medea, with her wild magic and foreign ways, was no longer part of them. The anguish that gripped Medea was unlike any pain she had ever known. It twisted in her chest, sharper than any blade, more relentless than any curse. Her love for Jason had been all-consuming, and now that love turned dark, festering into a desire for revenge that burned as fiercely as the love that had once filled her. Medea, once a healer and protector, found herself drawn to the darkest corners of her magic. If Jason could so easily betray her, then he would feel the depth of her wrath. In her anguish, Medea crafted a plan as cunning as it was deadly. She sent a poisoned robe and crown to Glossy, gifts disguised as tokens of peace. But as soon as Glossy donned them, the poison took hold, burning through her body with a fiery rage that could not be stopped. Glossy's screams echoed through the halls of the palace, her life snuffed out in a blaze of Medea's vengeance. The king, in his desperation to save his daughter, perished alongside her, his own flesh consumed by the cursed gift. But Medea's revenge did not stop there. In a moment of unimaginable pain and fury, she turned her wrath toward her own children. They were Jason's sons, the living proof of their once perfect love, and now they were to be the instruments of her final act of vengeance. Medea, with tears streaming down her face, did the unthinkable. She took the lives of her own children, her magic a cruel, unstoppable force. It was a decision born of the deepest agony, a desperate attempt to strike at Jason in the most personal, most painful way imaginable. She wanted him to feel what she felt, the unbearable pain of losing everything. Jason, upon discovering the bodies of his sons, was left with nothing but the ruins of the life he had betrayed. Medea stood above him, not as the devoted lover she had once been, but as a figure of wrath, her heart broken beyond repair. She had given him everything, and in return, he had taken it all away. In the end, her vengeance left her as it found her, alone, a sorceress with a shattered heart and the echoes of lost love haunting her every step. Medea's tale is a haunting reminder of the lengths to which a broken heart can drive even the most powerful among us. Her love for Jason had been fierce and true, but his betrayal turned that love into something darker, something that consumed everything in its path. The once devoted witch, who had crossed oceans and defied gods for the man she loved, became the very embodiment of heartache and revenge. Her story is not just one of magic and betrayal, but of the devastating consequences of a love that was promised, then broken, leaving nothing but sorrow and ashes in its wake. In the mists of Avalon, where the veil between magic and reality is thin, Morgan Le Fay stood as a powerful sorceress, her heart as enigmatic as the spells she cast. She was a woman of many faces, healer, enchantress, sister to King Arthur, and yet, behind her strength lay a yearning that no magic could fulfill. For all her power, for all the enchantments that flowed from her fingertips, Morgan Le Fay found herself caught in the unyielding grip of unrequited love. Her heart belonged to Lancelot, the bravest knight of Camelot, whose loyalty and charm were known far and wide. But Lancelot's heart was not hers to hold. It was forever bound to another, Guinevere, the queen whose name was like a dagger in Morgan's chest. Morgan watched Lancelot from afar, her eyes tracing the lines of his form as he rode into battle, as he laughed among friends, as he knelt before the queen with a gaze that spoke of endless devotion. Each glance, each word exchanged between Lancelot and Guinevere was a silent reminder to Morgan of all she could never have. She could summon storms, transform enemies, and heal the gravest of wounds, but she could not make Lancelot love her. Her magic, though vast, was powerless against the walls of his heart. In the quiet of her chambers, Morgan would let herself dream, just for a moment, of what it would be like to have Lancelot look at her the way he looked at Guinevere. To have his smile light up for her, to feel the warmth of his hand against hers. It was a simple, human desire, hidden beneath layers of sorcery and strength. But in those brief moments, when the moon cast its silvery glow on Avalon's waters, Morgan was not the feared enchantress, she was simply a woman who longed to be loved. Morgan's unrequited love was not just a silent sorrow, it became a force that shaped her destiny and the destiny of all around her. She could not turn her heart away from Lancelot, and so her pain began to twist into something darker. She saw the way Guinevere held his heart, and envy stirred like a restless spirit within her. Morgan's magic, once used for healing and protection, became a weapon of her despair. She sought to bend the fates, to create a world where Lancelot might see her, might choose her, but each spell, each scheme, only pushed him further away. Lancelot, ever the noble knight, was kind to Morgan, but his kindness only deepened her anguish. He treated her with respect, with the gallant courtesy of a knight, but it was never more than that. She could have been any lady of the court, any sorceress of Avalon, and it would not have mattered to him. His eyes, his heart, were always elsewhere. The weight of this truth bore down on Morgan like a curse, an invisible chain that bound her to a love that could never be. She tried to fight it, to turn her heart to stone, to bury her feelings beneath her magic and her duties. But Lancelot's presence was everywhere, in the halls of Camelot, in the songs of the minstrels, in the very air she breathed. He was a reminder of everything she was not, the unattainable, the honorable, the light in the dark corners of her soul. Morgan's love for him was a fire she could not extinguish, a haunting melody that played on, no matter how she tried to silence it. As time passed, Morgan's unfulfilled desires began to cloud her judgment. She turned to her magic, not for solace, but for revenge. If she could not have Lancelot's love, then she would have his loyalty by force, or so she thought. She crafted illusions, wove spells that would make him see her in Guinevere's place, but each attempt failed. Lancelot's heart was steadfast, immune to her charms in a way that no other man's had been. He resisted her magic with a strength that both infuriated and devastated her. Morgan's enchantments, so powerful and irresistible to others, crumbled before the purity of his love for Guinevere. Yet Morgan's heart did not harden completely. In the quiet moments, when the world was still and her magic no longer sparked at her fingertips, she would think of Lancelot's smile, of the way his eyes softened when he spoke of honor and duty. She loved him not just for his strength, but for the kindness he showed even in the smallest of gestures. It was a love that was hopeless, but it was hers, and she held it close, even as it tore her apart. Morgan's influence rippled through the Arthurian legends, her actions shaping the fates of knights and kings. Her unfulfilled love for Lancelot fueled her ambitions, her schemes to undermine Arthur and his court. But beneath it all, it was always about Lancelot, about the man she could never reach, the heart she could never hold. Her magic, as formidable as it was, could not touch the one thing she desired most. And so, she watched from the shadows, her heart forever caught between love and resentment, between the woman she was and the sorceress she had become. In the end, Morgan Le Fay's story is not just one of power and magic, but of the quiet, painful ache of unrequited love. It is the story of a woman who, for all her enchantments, could not conjure the one thing she needed most, the love of a man whose heart was always elsewhere. And though she wielded the power to change worlds, she remained bound by the oldest, most human of curses, the curse of loving someone who could never be hers. In her solitude, Morgan Le Fay remained a figure of mystery, a sorceress whose magic could shape legends, but whose heart, in the end, was left yearning, alone in the mists of Avalon. In the stillness of the night, when the veil between the living and the dead seemed thin enough to touch, the Witch of Endor lived in quiet obscurity, far from the eyes of those who feared her craft. She was known as a woman of great power, a sorceress whose whispers could stir the spirits of the long-forgotten. In a world where her talents were both feared and forbidden, she was a solitary figure, her only company the shadows that flickered in the dim light of her dwelling. Yet, there was something in her heart that no magic could quiet, a longing that stretched beyond the mortal realm, a love that defied the boundaries of life and death. King Saul, the once mighty ruler of Israel, now found himself drowning in fear and uncertainty. He had once been the chosen king, a man who stood tall among his people, but now his heart was heavy with dread. His enemies gathered at the borders, his God had turned silent, and the prophet Samuel, the only man whose counsel he had trusted, was dead. Saul's kingdom was crumbling, and with it, his spirit. Desperate for answers, for any sign that he was not abandoned, he turned to the one place he had long shunned, the forbidden world of necromancy. In the darkest hour of his despair, Saul disguised himself and sought out the Witch of Endor, hoping that her powers could summon the spirit of Samuel from the grave. The witch, cautious and wary of the king's laws against her kind, hesitated at first. She knew the risks of what he asked, the danger of reaching beyond the mortal plane. But in Saul's eyes, she saw a pain that mirrored her own, a deep, unspoken grief, a longing that seemed to pull at her very soul. Against her better judgment, she agreed to call upon Samuel's spirit, her voice weaving through the shadows as she spoke the words that would pierce the veil between the worlds. The air grew cold as her incantations filled the room, the flickering candles dimming as the presence of the otherworldly grew near. And then, from the darkness, Samuel appeared, his spirit pulled from the quiet of the grave into the harsh light of Saul's desperation. The witch watched, her heart heavy, as the once proud king fell to his knees before the ghost of the prophet. Saul's face was etched with fear and sorrow, his eyes searching Samuel's for any sign of hope. But the spirit's message was not of comfort or solace, it was a grim foretelling of Saul's defeat, of his death and the fall of his kingdom. Saul's anguish echoed in the small chamber, his cries a painful reminder of all he had lost. For the Witch of Endor, the scene was more than a display of power or a moment of defiance against the laws that condemned her. In Saul's brokenness, she saw the echoes of her own heartache, the shadows of a love she had once known but could never hold. It was said that she had loved a man who had crossed the veil, a love that had ended not with death, but with the unyielding barrier between the living and the dead. And though she could call forth spirits and speak to those who had passed on, she could never bring back the warmth, the touch, the presence of the one she loved. It was a love that existed in whispers and memories, in the spaces between spells and shadows. The forbidden magic that Saul sought was the very essence of the witch's existence, a bridge to a world that no longer belonged to the living. She had seen the faces of the departed, felt the chill of the afterlife, and yet, she remained tethered to the earth, bound by the weight of her unfulfilled longing. Her power was both a gift and a curse, a means to touch the beyond, but never to truly reach it. And as she watched Saul's despair unfold, she knew the pain of his heart, the yearning for answers that would never come. Saul left the witch's dwelling that night, his fate sealed, his spirit broken. The witch, though untouched by his destiny, felt the heavy pull of sorrow in the air. She returned to her solitude, the echoes of Saul's cries lingering in her mind. She had witnessed the cost of forbidden love, of reaching beyond the boundaries set by the living, and it weighed on her like a shadow that refused to lift. In her loneliness, she would often sit by the fading light of a single candle, her thoughts drifting to the man who had once held her heart. Though her magic could conjure his image, call forth his voice, it could never bring back the life they had once shared. There was a bittersweet comfort in her power, a knowing that she was not entirely alone, but also a deep, unending ache for the touch of the one she loved. Her spells were like quiet lullabies to the dead, soft, mournful notes that bridged the silence between their worlds. She was a keeper of the lost, a guardian of memories that no longer had a place among the living. And in every incantation, in every whispered word, there was the unspoken wish that she could cross the veil, just once, and feel the warmth of love again. The Witch of Endor's story is one of power and sorrow, of love that stretches beyond the reach of life itself. Her connection to Saul, though brief, was a reflection of the pain that comes from loving beyond the bounds of mortality. She was more than a sorceress, she was a soul caught between worlds, a heart forever yearning for the impossible. And as the shadows lengthened in her quiet home, she knew that some loves were not meant to be confined by life or death, they existed in the spaces in between, in the quiet, lingering moments where the heart still dared to hope. In the glittering halls of the French court, where secrets were whispered behind velvet curtains and power was bought with gold and blood, Catherine Monvoisin, better known as La Voisin, wove her magic in the shadows. She was not just a fortune-teller or a seller of charms, she was a woman who held the fate of nobles in the palm of her hand. The court of King Louis XIV was a place of luxury and decadence, but beneath its dazzling surface lay a dark underbelly of envy, greed, and ambition. And it was in this dangerous dance of politics and sorcery that La Voisin's own heart found itself entangled. La Voisin was a woman of many faces. To some, she was a healer, a confidant, a lifeline in times of despair. To others, she was a dangerous witch, one whose potions and powders could both enchant and destroy. She moved through Paris with an air of mystery, her presence both feared and sought after. She knew the desires of the heart better than most, for she had seen the desperate eyes of lovers, the pleading faces of the betrayed, and the hungry stares of those seeking revenge. Her life was a delicate balance of power and peril, where one wrong move could mean her end. Amid the tangled web she spun, La Voisin found herself drawn to a love that was as doomed as it was passionate. He was a man of the court, a figure lost to history but forever etched in her heart. In the quiet moments, away from prying eyes, they shared whispers and stolen glances. Their love was like a flame flickering in a storm, fragile but fiercely bright. Yet, in a world where alliances were made and broken with a single word, where loyalties shifted like the wind, their love was a secret too dangerous to keep. La Voisin's powers made her a valuable asset and a feared enemy. She could grant favors, cast curses, and whisper the secrets of the future into the ears of those who could pay her price. But her magic could not protect her heart from the treacheries of those who surrounded her. She knew the stakes, she had seen the fate of those who had flown too close to the sun. Yet, she dared to love, even when every omen, every warning sign, told her that this path would only lead to ruin. In the dark alleys and hidden chambers where she practiced her craft, La Voisin's mind often wandered to him. The nights were long, filled with the scent of burning herbs and the faint glow of candlelight, but thoughts of him made her feel alive in a way that no spell could. She would trace her fingers over the cards she used for divination, her heart sinking as they foretold the same grim fate over and over. Betrayal was woven into their story, like a thread that could not be pulled without unraveling everything. The French court was a place where trust was a luxury few could afford. As La Voisin's influence grew, so did the envy and suspicion of those around her. Whispers of her dark arts spread like wildfire, and soon, her enemies were many. The powerful noblewomen she served turned on her, their own ambitions and fears driving them to denounce her as a witch. They spoke of her secret rituals, her dealings with poisons and potions, and in their eyes, she became a threat that had to be eliminated. In the court's endless game of power, La Voisin had become a pawn, and her love was the price she would pay. As the noose tightened around her, La Voisin tried to protect the man she loved. She used her magic to shield him, to divert suspicion and danger away from him. But in a world as treacherous as the French court, her efforts were never enough. Betrayal came swiftly and without warning. Those she had once trusted turned against her, feeding the fires of accusation and sealing her fate. The court that had once sought her counsel now sought her downfall, and her lover, bound by the ties of his own survival, could do nothing to save her. La Voisin was arrested, her dark deeds laid bare for all to see. They spoke of black masses, of poisons slipped into cups, of spells cast to twist the will of kings and queens. She stood before her accusers, a woman alone, stripped of the power that had once made her invincible. The man she had loved watched from the shadows, his heart heavy with the knowledge that he could not save her. Their love, once a secret and sacred bond, was now a curse that haunted them both. In her final days, La Voisin's thoughts lingered on the what-ifs, the moments that could have been different. She had loved fiercely, without caution, in a world that had no place for such tenderness. Her magic had been her greatest strength, but it could not protect her from the harsh reality of the world she lived in. As she was led to the stake, the flames licking at her feet, she held onto the memories of him, his touch, his voice, the way he had looked at her as if she were the only person in the room. La Voisin's end was as tragic as her love, a testament to the dangers of a heart that dared to love in a world built on betrayal and lies. She was more than just a witch, she was a woman who had sought connection in a time of isolation, who had found love in the unlikeliest of places, and who had paid the ultimate price for it. As the fire consumed her, she became a martyr of sorts, a cautionary tale whispered in the dark corners of the court, a reminder that love and power were forces that, when combined, could lead to the most devastating of ends. The legacy of La Voisin lived on long after the flames had died down. She was remembered not just for her sorcery, but for the passion that had driven her, the love that had defined her, and the tragedy that had claimed her. In the annals of history, her name became a symbol of the perilous intersection of love and magic, of the unbreakable bond between heartache and power. And in the quiet moments, when the court's intrigues faded to silence, her story was a ghost that lingered, a tale of love that defied the rules of life and death, and a reminder that some flames, no matter how briefly they burn, leave a mark that time can never erase. In the misty hills of ancient Wales, where the air is thick with magic and the whispers of old gods, lived a mother whose heart ached with a love so fierce it could shatter worlds. Ceridwen, a powerful sorceress known for her wisdom and her cauldron of transformation, was no ordinary woman. She was a keeper of secrets, a weaver of spells, and a mother whose love for her son shone brighter than any star. But love, when mixed with magic, can be a dangerous thing, and Ceridwen's love would lead her down a path of pain, loss, and unintended consequences. Ceridwen had 2 children, a beautiful daughter named Cyrwi and a son, Morfran, whose appearance was marked by an unfortunate ugliness. While Cyrwi was celebrated for her beauty, Morfran was mocked and shunned, a cruel twist of fate that left a mother's heart breaking. Ceridwen saw the world's unkindness toward her son and felt a deep, burning desire to change his fate. She knew that in a world that worshipped beauty and power, her son's chances were slim. So she turned to the one thing she knew best, magic. She would brew a potion in her cauldron that would bestow upon Morfran the gift of wisdom and knowledge, something far greater than physical beauty. It would make him respected, even revered. But this was no ordinary potion. It required a year and a day of careful tending, with rare ingredients and ancient incantations. Ceridwen's determination never wavered. She would do anything to give her son a chance to rise above the scorn of others. As the potion brewed, Ceridwen employed a young servant named Gwayan Bach to stir the cauldron. His task seemed simple: keep the fire going and stir the potion endlessly, ensuring it would be ready at the appointed time. But on the final day, fate intervened. 3 drops of the potion splashed onto Gwayan's finger, burning him with their magic. Instinctively, he licked his finger, and in that instant, the gift of wisdom meant for Morfran flowed into Gwayan. The rest of the potion turned poisonous, its magic gone, its promise shattered. Ceridwen's careful plan unraveled before her eyes, and in that moment, a mother's hope was replaced by fury. She chased Gwayan, who had gained not only wisdom but also the ability to shapeshift. He fled, changing from form to form, a hare, a fish, a bird, each transformation a desperate attempt to escape the wrath of a mother whose love had been betrayed. Ceridwen, driven by rage and the pain of her loss, transformed into a greyhound, an otter, a hawk, matching his every move with the relentless determination only a mother could possess. The chase was not just a hunt, it was the embodiment of her anguish, her desperation to reclaim what had been stolen. In the final moment, Gwayan transformed into a grain of corn, but Ceridwen, now a hen, swallowed him whole. 9 months later, Ceridwen gave birth to a child, the reincarnation of Gwayan, now called Taliesin. He was everything she had wanted for Morfran: brilliant, talented, and destined for greatness. Holding the infant Taliesin in her arms, Ceridwen faced a choice: to exact revenge or to let go. As she gazed at the child, she saw not the thief of her son's destiny but a new life, an innocent being touched by her magic. Her heart softened, and she let him live, setting him adrift in a leather bag upon the river, surrendering him to fate's hands. Ceridwen's story is one of love so powerful it defied the natural order, a mother's fierce determination to give her son a gift that the world had denied him. But magic is a double-edged sword, and the forces Ceridwen unleashed did not bend to her will. Her sacrifice was immense, her love undeniable, but the outcome was beyond her control. In trying to protect Morfran, she had created something new and unforeseen, a child whose brilliance would light up the world in ways she had never imagined. In the quiet moments, when the winds whispered through the Welsh valleys, Ceridwen would sit by her cauldron, reflecting on the child she had let go and the son she still held close. Morfran remained unchanged, untouched by the wisdom she had sought to give him. He would not be a great poet or a revered sage, but he was hers, and in her heart, that was enough. Ceridwen's love had taken her to the brink of madness and back, had turned the tides of fate and rewritten destinies. And though her heart still ached for what could have been, she had learned the hardest truth of all, that sometimes, even the most powerful magic cannot change what is meant to be. Ceridwen's tale echoes through the ages as a reminder of the lengths a mother will go for her child, the sacrifices she will make, and the unintended paths that love can carve. Her story is not one of victory or defeat, but of a heart that refused to stop fighting, even when the odds were impossible. She was not just a witch with a cauldron, she was a mother whose love burned brighter than any spell, whose pain resonated with every lost dream, and whose legacy lived on in the tales of transformation and the bittersweet consequences of a love that knew no bounds. In the deep, tangled forests of Eastern Europe, where the trees seem to whisper secrets and the shadows stretch long, lives Baba Yaga, the enigmatic witch of Slavic folklore. She's a figure of mystery, perched in her hut that stands on chicken legs, turning slowly to face those who dare approach. To some, she is a monster, a villain lurking in the shadows with a taste for trickery and a cackle that chills the bones. But beneath the tales of horror and wickedness lies another story, a story of a woman who has loved and lost, whose heart has been scarred by time, loneliness, and the unforgiving nature of her world. Baba Yaga is no stranger to the complexities of love. In her early days, before she became the fearsome witch that children whisper about, she knew the warmth of companionship, the softness of affection. But love in Baba Yaga's world was never easy. It was a dance on the edge of a knife, fragile and fleeting. She gave her heart to a man who promised her the moon and stars, who swore that their love would defy the bounds of magic and mortality. But as is often the way with promises, they were as easily broken as they were made. He left her, chasing dreams of his own, leaving Baba Yaga alone to pick up the pieces of a shattered heart. Betrayal became her constant companion, a cold reminder of what happens when you open yourself to love. She built walls around her heart, crafting them from spells and curses, from the bones of those who thought they could outwit her. She became the Witch of the Woods, a figure of fear and awe, but also a symbol of love gone wrong. For every curse she cast, for every soul she tricked, there was a part of her that mourned what she had lost, what she could never have again. Love, in Baba Yaga's eyes, was a dangerous game, one she had played and lost. Her role as both villain and tragic figure is seen in the tales that swirl around her. She is the one who tests the hero's courage, who offers impossible tasks that seem destined to fail. But for those who look closer, there is a glimmer of something more, a test of the heart, a challenge not just of strength but of spirit. Baba Yaga's challenges are not born of malice alone, they are echoes of her own trials, of the pain she endured and the lessons she learned the hard way. When she gives a hero a chance to prove themselves, she is not just testing them, she is reliving her own heartbreak, watching to see if they will fall as she did or if they will rise above. And then there are the stories of her fleeting moments of tenderness, of the times when she allowed herself to care. There is the tale of the young woodsman who stumbled upon her hut, lost and weary, with nothing to offer but his honesty and a sad smile. For reasons she couldn't quite explain, Baba Yaga let him stay. She shared her fire with him, listened to his tales of lost love and broken dreams. In his eyes, she saw a reflection of her own sorrow, a reminder of what it meant to be vulnerable, to yearn for something just out of reach. For a brief moment, they were not witch and wanderer, but two souls finding solace in each other's company. But as the sun rose and the first light of dawn crept into the forest, Baba Yaga hardened once more. She sent him on his way with a riddle and a warning, her heart aching as she watched him disappear into the trees. Baba Yaga's story is not just one of magic and menace, it is a tale of love scars, of the way it shapes and twists those who dare to feel too much. She is a figure who stands at the crossroads of fear and longing, a woman who has been both the beloved and the betrayed. Her duality is what makes her so compelling, a villain with a heart that still remembers what it means to ache for love, even as she pushes it away. In the darkest corners of the forest, Baba Yaga sits alone, her hut creaking as it shifts on its legs. She gazes into the flames of her hearth, seeing not just the faces of those she has tricked or tormented, but the flickers of the life she once knew. There are moments when the wind carries the sound of laughter, distant and faint, and for a second, Baba Yaga allows herself to remember the days when she too laughed without caution, when love was not a curse but a gift she held in her hands. Those moments are fleeting, gone as quickly as they come, replaced by the cold reality of her existence. To the world, she remains Baba Yaga, the witch who dwells in the shadows, feared and misunderstood. But beneath the layers of magic and myth, there is a story of a woman who loved and lost, whose heart has been weathered by the passage of time and the harsh lessons of life. She is not just a villain, not just a cautionary tale told to frighten children. She is a reminder that even the fiercest of hearts can break, that even the most powerful of beings can be brought low by the simplest of emotions. Baba Yaga's story is not one of happy endings or grand romances, but of love that lingers in the shadows, of a heart that still beats beneath the veneer of power and fear. In the silent hours of the night, when the veil between the living and the dead feels paper-thin, the shadow of Hecate looms large. She is the Greek goddess of witchcraft, the keeper of crossroads, and the guardian of lost souls. Wrapped in the darkness of the underworld, she stands at the edge of every decision, every path not taken. Her torches light the way for the lost and the wandering, her presence both a comfort and a reminder of all that could never be. Yet beneath her powerful facade lies a heart burdened by the weight of love that was never meant to last, a heart that knows the ache of loss all too well. Hecate is not just the goddess of spells and shadows, she is the embodiment of longing. She walks the line between the worlds, always caught between what is and what could have been. In the underworld, she reigns as a protector, guiding the souls of the dead with a gentle touch, but she is also a silent mourner, grieving the loves that slipped through her fingers. Her name is whispered in the wind, her sorrow carried by the moonlight that bathes the world in silver. In every whisper, there is a hint of the love she has lost, of the hearts that once beat in time with hers, but now rest beneath the cold earth. In the early days of her existence, before she was crowned as the goddess of witchcraft, Hecate was a being of light, full of promise and the thrill of new beginnings. She knew what it was to feel the warmth of another's touch, to look into eyes that held a reflection of her own soul. She fell in love with a mortal, a man whose spirit burned bright against the backdrop of a world that often seemed dull. They shared stolen moments under the stars, their laughter echoing in the stillness of the night. But mortal lives are fleeting, and their time together was cut short by the relentless march of fate. He was claimed by the very underworld Hecate would come to rule, leaving her alone with nothing but memories and the bitter taste of what might have been. This was not the first time, nor would it be the last, that Hecate found herself bound to a love doomed to fade. She fell again, drawn to those who were always just out of reach. A warrior whose heart belonged to battle, a poet whose verses were dedicated to a muse that wasn't her. Each time, she offered her heart, and each time, it was left to bleed in the shadows. She watched as they walked paths that led away from her, their backs turned to the goddess who could have given them everything. Hecate learned that love, for her, was a series of farewells, a cycle of hope and heartache that left her standing alone at the crossroads, waiting for someone who would never come. Yet, Hecate did not harden herself against these losses. Instead, she embraced them, letting her sorrow become a part of who she was. She took on the role of the guardian of souls, offering a guiding hand to those who, like her, had been separated from what they cherished most. In the underworld, she became a beacon for the lost, her torches illuminating the paths that led home. She stood at the gates, watching as souls passed by, some still clinging to the memories of lives filled with love and others bitter from the pain of abandonment. Hecate saw her own story in each of them, a mirror reflecting her endless search for connection in a world that so often kept her at arm's length. There is a story of a young woman, torn from her lover by a tragic twist of fate, who wandered the underworld searching for the face she would never see again. Hecate, moved by the girl's devotion, took her by the hand and led her to a quiet place by the river of souls. There, they sat together, sharing tales of love and loss, of hopes dashed and dreams that never came to be. In that moment, Hecate was not a goddess, but a fellow traveler, someone who understood the pain of an empty heart. For a while, the young woman found peace in Hecate's presence, comforted by the knowledge that she was not alone in her grief. But Hecate's role is not just to mourn with the grieving, she is also the keeper of choices, the one who stands at the fork in the road, offering the chance to move forward or to remain trapped in the past. For Hecate, love is both a guiding light and a heavy chain, something that pulls her towards others even as it binds her to the shadows of what she cannot change. She is the embodiment of longing, the eternal seeker who understands that sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go. Her lost loves, though gone, remain with her in spirit. They are the voices in the wind, the flicker of light in her torches, the quiet moments when the world stands still and all that is left is the sound of her own heartbeat. Hecate carries them with her, a part of her that refuses to fade no matter how many centuries pass. She is a goddess who knows that true power is not in spells or sorcery, but in the strength to keep loving, even when every love story seems destined to end in tears. As she walks the underworld, guiding the souls who come to her in their time of need, Hecate is more than a deity of witchcraft. She is a guardian of the heart, a protector of those who have loved and lost, who have wandered through the darkness in search of something they cannot name. She is the soft glow of hope in the darkest night, the whisper of a promise that, even in the face of loss, love endures. Hecate's torches may light the way for others, but it is the light of her own resilient heart that truly guides her path, a heart that has been broken but never extinguished, a heart that still beats with the echo of every love that has ever touched her soul. In the ancient echoes of the night, where shadows stretch long and the moon casts its pale light, the legend of Lilith emerges, a figure of haunting beauty and sorrow. Lilith, often called the first witch in various mythologies, stands as a symbol of defiance and heartbreak. Her story is not just one of rebellion but of a relentless quest for love and the tragic fate that awaited her. Lilith's tale begins with a fiery spirit, a being of incredible strength and independence. She was created not from clay, but from the same earth as Adam, meant to be his equal. In those early moments, she was vibrant and free, her soul as untamed as the winds that swept across the primordial landscape. But this equality was not to last. Lilith refused to be subservient, to bow down to Adam in a way that felt unnatural and unjust to her. Her defiance was not born of malice, but of a deep desire to be seen as an equal partner, to be loved for who she was rather than what she was expected to be. Her refusal to submit led to her expulsion from the Garden of Eden, casting her into a world that was both alien and unforgiving. This separation marked the beginning of Lilith's endless search for love, a quest that would span the ages and leave her forever longing. Cast out and left to wander, Lilith sought solace in the shadows, where her heart could be as wild and unbound as her spirit. But the freedom she craved came at a terrible price. The world she entered was harsh, filled with creatures and beings that saw her not as a lover but as a threat. Her beauty and power became sources of fear and envy rather than affection and adoration. In the darkness of her exile, Lilith became a figure of myth and fear, her name whispered in fear and awe. She was said to be a seductress, a demon of the night who roamed the wilderness, haunting those who dared to cross her path. But beneath this terrifying facade lay a heart that ached for the very thing she had been denied, true, untainted love. Her reputation as a witch was built upon the longing she carried, a longing that transformed into an unquenchable desire to be loved and accepted, not for her power or defiance, but for her true self. Her search for love took her through countless encounters, each one a reflection of her own heartache. She met beings who were drawn to her beauty and strength, but could never truly see her for who she was. Each encounter ended in disappointment, each promise of affection shattered by the harsh reality of her existence. Lilith became a wanderer of the night, her soul as restless as the moon that watched over her from above. Her tragic fate was sealed by her own quest for love, a pursuit that seemed to lead only to more pain and isolation. Despite her many attempts to find a place where she belonged, Lilith remained an outcast, forever separated from the companionship she yearned for. Her heart was left broken, a patchwork of longing and loss, as she continued to drift through the shadows of the world she was forced to inhabit. Lilith's story is not just one of myth and legend, it is a poignant tale of the struggle for acceptance and the pain of eternal longing. Her defiance was not merely a rejection of Adam, but a profound cry for recognition, for love that saw her as more than just a symbol of rebellion. Her quest for love, marked by her powerful spirit and unyielding desire, became her greatest tragedy. She is remembered not just as a witch, but as a symbol of a love that was never truly realized, a love that remained just out of reach no matter how hard she fought for it. In the quiet moments when the night feels particularly still, one might hear the whisper of Lilith's sorrow carried on the wind. Her story is a testament to the pain of yearning for something that always seems to slip away, of a heart that never truly finds its home. Lilith's legend is a reminder of the deep and often unspoken agony that accompanies the quest for love, of the way it can drive a person to the edge of despair, yet never let go of the hope that it might one day be found. In the misty mountains of Japan, where the fog drapes the landscape in a ghostly veil, the tale of Yumaba unfolds, a story of a witch whose heart was as wild and untamed as the forest she called home. Yumaba, a mountain witch with powers that made her a figure of fear and awe, found herself caught in a web of love and sorrow, trapped between her mystical nature and a love that seemed as forbidden as it was passionate. Yumaba lived alone in the deep woods, her home a hut hidden among ancient trees. She was a guardian of the mountain, her magic weaving through the mist and the shadows. Her life was one of solitude, marked by the occasional visit from lost travelers whom she might help or trick, depending on her mood. Her heart, however, was not immune to the pull of desire, and it was not long before she met a mortal whose charm would stir feelings she thought herself beyond. The mortal was a young man, a wanderer who had ventured into the mountains in search of a rare herb. His arrival in Yumaba's domain was like a spark in the darkness. He was kind, brave, and completely unaware of the dangers that lurked in the forest. Yumaba watched him from the shadows, her heart stirring with a longing she had not felt in centuries. Despite her fierce exterior and the magic that defined her, she found herself drawn to him, captivated by his innocence and courage. Their meeting was a delicate dance of fate. Yumaba, hiding her true nature, offered him hospitality. She wove spells to keep him safe from the forest's perils, her kindness cloaked in the guise of a helpful hermit. As the days passed, the young man began to see her not as a witch, but as a kind and gentle soul. He was touched by her generosity and the warmth she showed him. Their conversations grew more intimate, their connection deeper, and what began as gratitude soon blossomed into something more profound. Yumaba, for the first time, felt a love that transcended the boundaries of her mystical existence. She yearned to be with him, to share a life beyond the forest's edge. But she knew that her love was a dangerous gift, one that could not be freely given without consequence. The mortal was unaware of the true nature of his benefactor, and Yumaba kept her secrets hidden, fearful of what might happen if he discovered who she truly was. The love they shared was a bittersweet joy, a fleeting moment of happiness in a life that had known only isolation. Yumaba's heart ached with the weight of what could never be. She was bound to the forest, to the magic that sustained her and defined her existence. To leave would mean abandoning her power, her home, and perhaps even her very essence. Yet, the pull of the mortal's love was a siren's call, one she found impossible to resist. As their time together drew to a close, Yumaba faced a harrowing decision. She could not stay with him, for doing so would mean revealing her true self and risking the wrath of the spirits and forces that governed the mountains. But neither could she bear the thought of losing him. The choice between her magical life and the love she had found was a cruel one, a rift that seemed impossible to bridge. In a moment of desperation, Yumaba tried to secure their future by casting a spell to bind their fates together. She hoped that her magic would allow them to be together, even if it meant compromising her own power. The spell was a desperate act of love, and it came with a heavy price. The magic, while powerful, could not protect them from the consequences of their forbidden union. It bound them in ways neither could fully understand, and as the spell took hold, it became clear that the price of their love would be far greater than either had anticipated. The forest grew darker, the air heavy with the weight of impending loss. The young man began to sense that something was wrong, that Yumaba was hiding truths that could shatter their fragile happiness. The more he discovered, the more he realized the danger that came with loving a witch of the mountains. The joy of their time together began to fade, replaced by a sense of dread and foreboding. The climax of their story was as tragic as it was inevitable. The magic that had once brought them close now drove them apart. The spell Yamaba had cast, meant to unite their fates, instead pulled them into a vortex of sorrow and separation. The forest, once a place of refuge and love, became a prison from which there was no escape. The young man, unable to cope with the reality of Yamaba's world, was forced to leave, his heart shattered by the knowledge that the love he had cherished was now lost to him forever. Yamaba watched him go, her heart breaking with each step he took away from her. The forest that had once been a sanctuary now felt like a tomb, filled with echoes of what could have been. The love she had fought so hard to protect was now a memory, a beautiful but painful reminder of the choices she had made and the sacrifices she had endured. In the end, Yamaba remained in the mountains, her heart forever marked by the love she had lost. She became a figure of both legend and lament, her story a poignant reminder of the sacrifices made in the name of forbidden love. Her life, bound by magic and isolation, continued in a world that held both the beauty of her love and the harshness of her fate. The mountains whispered her tale to those who would listen, a haunting echo of a love that burned brightly but ultimately could not withstand the price of its own existence. In the shadowy realms of Norse mythology, where gods and heroes weave their stories through the mist of legend, the tale of Grimhild stands as a powerful and tragic saga of love and vengeance. Grimhild, the Viking witch, is a figure whose story is marked by a deep, burning love that spirals into treachery and war, her heart forever bound to the destructive forces of magic and revenge. Grimhild was a queen, a sorceress of great power, whose beauty and cunning made her both admired and feared. Her love was fierce and all-consuming, directed towards her family and those she held dear. Her life, however, took a dark turn when her love became entangled with treachery, leading to a series of events that would alter the fate of many. At the heart of Grimhild's story is her daughter, Gudrun, a young woman caught in a web of fate spun by her mother's magic and ambition. Grimhild's love for her children was profound, but it was also a driving force behind her darker actions. When Gudrun's marriage to Sigurd, a great hero, ended in betrayal and death, Grimhild's heart was shattered. Her love for her daughter turned into a fierce determination for vengeance, and it was this powerful emotion that drove her to commit unspeakable acts. In her grief and anger, Grimhild used her magic to manipulate and destroy. She cast spells to sow discord among those she blamed for her family's suffering. Her magic, once a tool of love and protection, became a weapon of retribution. The love she had for Gudrun turned into a consuming fire that threatened to engulf everything in its path. Grimhild's spells and enchantments became more destructive, her desire for vengeance overshadowing her earlier intentions. The effects of Grimhild's actions were catastrophic. Her quest for revenge plunged the land into chaos. The once beautiful halls of her home became the site of bitter conflict, and the air was thick with the tension of impending war. The love that had once been a source of strength and joy was now twisted into a force that fueled destruction. Grimhild's family was caught in the crossfire of her rage, their lives forever altered by the consequences of her magic. Gudrun's suffering was compounded by her mother's actions. The cycle of vengeance that Grimhild set in motion did not bring the peace or closure she had hoped for. Instead, it only deepened the pain and sorrow that had already gripped her family. The tragic irony of Grimhild's story is that her love, which should have been a source of comfort and protection, became the catalyst for further tragedy. Grimhild's tale is also one of power and its corrupting influence. Her magical abilities, once used for benevolent purposes, became instruments of her vengeance. The destructive power of her magic was a reflection of her own inner turmoil and the devastating impact of her grief. Her actions demonstrated how even the purest intentions can be warped by the intensity of love and the desire for retribution. As the saga unfolds, Grimhild's actions lead to a tragic end. The very forces she unleashed in her quest for vengeance ultimately consume her. The magic that had once been a part of her identity becomes her undoing. The love that had driven her to such lengths turns into a haunting memory of what once was, a reminder of the destructive potential of unchecked emotions. In the end, Grimhild's story is a powerful and poignant reminder of the complexities of love and vengeance. Her tale is one of a fierce and passionate heart whose actions, driven by a profound love for her family, led to a chain of events that resulted in immense sorrow and destruction. The balance of love and vengeance in Grimhild's life reveals the tragic consequences that can arise when emotions are allowed to spiral out of control, and the destructive power that can emerge from even the most intense and heartfelt desires. In the cold, stark landscapes of Scotland, where the winter winds howl through barren trees, there exists a figure wrapped in both mystery and melancholy, the Cailleach. This ancient Scottish hag, draped in the chill of endless winter, carries with her a tale of unfulfilled longing and lost love that chills the heart as much as the frost she commands. The Cailleach is not merely a creature of ice and snow, she is a symbol of the cycle of death and rebirth. Her story, woven into the fabric of Scottish folklore, reveals a figure whose cold exterior masks a profound sadness and a yearning for companionship that never fully materializes. Her eternal winter is not just a weather pattern but a reflection of her own eternal solitude. The Cailleach's tale begins in a time long forgotten, with her heart longing for love and connection. In the stories passed down through generations, she is depicted as a powerful witch, but also as a being of deep emotional need. She dwells alone in her frozen domain, a solitary figure in a world that has turned its back on her. Her icy fingers caress the land, turning it into a winter wasteland, but her heart remains untouched by the warmth she so desperately seeks. The romance that eluded the Cailleach is a thread of sorrow that runs through her existence. There are tales of lovers who crossed her path, but these stories are tinged with the bitterness of betrayal and loss. The Cailleach's love, it seems, is always just out of reach. Her desire for companionship is thwarted by her own nature, as her wintry form repels those who might offer her the warmth she yearns for. One of the most poignant aspects of the Cailleach's story is the cycle of death and rebirth that defines her life. Every year, as winter stretches across the land, the Cailleach is at her most powerful, her icy breath laying waste to the earth. Yet, as spring arrives, her power wanes, and she is forced to retreat. This cycle mirrors her own internal struggle, a constant ebb and flow of hope and despair, warmth and cold. Her longing for love is tied to this cycle, as it is in the moments of retreat that her heartache is most acute. The return of warmth and life to the land is a stark reminder of what she cannot have. Each spring, as the world awakens and the flowers bloom, the Cailleach's own sorrow is renewed. The joy of the world's rebirth only highlights her perpetual isolation. In her moments of solitude, the Cailleach's heartache transforms into a powerful force. Her sorrow is not just a passive emotion but a driving force that shapes the world around her. The icy storms she conjures are as much a manifestation of her inner turmoil as they are a reflection of her power. Her magic, born of grief and longing, serves as a reminder of the love she can never fully attain. The stories of the Cailleach are imbued with a deep sense of tragedy. They tell of a woman whose heart, though capable of immense warmth and love, is forever encased in the coldness of her own existence. Her unfulfilled desire for companionship casts a long shadow over her life, a shadow that stretches across the land with the chill of her winter. In her myth, the Cailleach's legacy is one of stark beauty and haunting sadness. She embodies the harshness of winter, yet her tale is a poignant reminder of the warmth she yearns for but never quite grasps. The eternal cycle of her existence, marked by the shift from the icy grip of winter to the hopeful promise of spring, is a reflection of the constant tension between her desire for love and the cold reality of her fate. The Cailleach's story is one of love that is always just out of reach, of longing that shapes the very world she inhabits. Her tale resonates with a profound sense of loss and the enduring hope that somehow, someday, she might find the companionship she so desperately seeks. Her wintry domain, though seemingly unfeeling, is a canvas for the deep emotions that drive her, a powerful testament to the heartache of a love that can never fully bloom. In the heart of New Orleans, where the streets pulse with rhythm and mystique, the legend of Marie Laveau casts a spell as enchanting as the city itself. Marie Laveau, known as the Voodoo Queen, lives on not just through historical accounts but through the whispers of the streets, where her story intertwines with both love and mystery, magic and folklore. Marie Laveau was a figure of remarkable influence, a woman who combined the ancient traditions of voodoo with the vibrant culture of New Orleans. Her life was marked by a blend of power and passion, a testament to the depth of her character and the reach of her influence. The legends surrounding her are as intricate as the lacework of the city's architecture, filled with tales of love and loss that touch the heart. Her romantic life, often overshadowed by her magical prowess, adds a poignant layer to her story. Marie's love affairs were not just a matter of passion but a part of the complex tapestry that made up her life. Her relationships were marked by intense emotions and deep connections, reflecting the same fervor that characterized her voodoo practices. The romance in her life was as potent and unpredictable as the magic she wielded. Marie's love story is a tale of highs and lows, a dance of joy and sorrow. Her relationships were imbued with the same sense of mystery that surrounded her public life. She was known to have had a lover who was both her confidant and her muse, a man whose presence in her life added depth to her magical practices. This love was not without its trials. Marie faced the complexities of romance with a heart that was as open as it was guarded, reflecting the dual nature of her public and private personas. The magical influence of Marie Laveau was profound. She was a powerful practitioner of voodoo, a faith that blends African traditions with elements of Christianity. Her ability to heal, curse, and protect was renowned, and her presence was felt in every corner of New Orleans. Marie's magic was a reflection of her deep connection to her heritage and her community. Her spells and rituals were performed with a love and dedication that spoke to her commitment to the people she served. But Marie's influence extended beyond her magical practices. She was a symbol of strength and resilience, a woman who commanded respect and admiration in a time when such power was rare for someone of her background. Her ability to navigate the complexities of her world, combining personal desires with public responsibilities, made her a figure of both awe and empathy. The myths surrounding Marie Laveau are as rich as the city's history. Stories of her miraculous acts, her encounters with spirits, and her role in the voodoo community paint a picture of a woman who was both revered and feared. The legends speak of her enduring love for her community, her relentless pursuit of justice, and her unyielding belief in the power of magic. Marie's life was a blend of reality and legend, where the boundaries between the two often blurred. Her legacy is a testament to her ability to inspire both wonder and respect. The tales of her love, her power, and her mystical practices have created an enduring image of a woman whose influence transcends time. In the end, the story of Marie Laveau is a hauntingly beautiful reflection of the complex interplay between love, power, and mystery. Her life, marked by both extraordinary achievements and deeply personal struggles, remains a source of fascination and inspiration. Marie's legacy continues to resonate, echoing through the streets of New Orleans and the hearts of those who hear her story. In the misty hills of ancient Wales, the story of Rhiannon unfolds, a tale woven with magic, heartbreak, and the struggle for redemption. Rhiannon, a figure of extraordinary beauty and power, is more than just a myth. She is a symbol of love's triumph and tragedy, a beacon of hope and sorrow intertwined. Rhiannon's life is marked by both her formidable magical abilities and the intense personal trials she endures. As a Welsh goddess, she possessed a magical grace that enchanted everyone who crossed her path. Her skills were legendary, with tales of her riding a swift horse that no one else could match, and of her magical voice that could summon the forces of nature. Yet, despite her powers and divine beauty, Rhiannon's life was shadowed by profound heartache. Her story begins with a love that is as enchanting as it is tragic. Rhiannon fell deeply in love with a man named Poole, and their love was as pure and true as any could hope for. But fate, it seems, had other plans. Their union was marred by a cruel twist of destiny. In an era where betrayal and deceit were common, Rhiannon's happiness was shattered by treachery. Rhiannon's trials began with an agonizing betrayal. She was accused of a crime she did not commit, one as grievous as it was unfounded. This accusation led to her being cruelly punished, a fate that tore her from her beloved and from the life she once knew. The injustice she suffered was not just a personal blow but a heart-wrenching tragedy that shook the very fabric of her existence. Her punishment was harsh and humiliating. Rhiannon was forced to carry out a punishment meant to break her spirit, forced to live a life of penance and scorn. She was made to act as a beast of burden, enduring a relentless punishment that seemed endless. This period of suffering was not just physical but emotional, a crushing blow to her spirit and her sense of self. But Rhiannon's story is not one of unrelenting sorrow. Despite the immense pain she endured, there is a thread of hope woven through her trials. Her endurance and dignity during her punishment were a testament to her strength. Rhiannon faced her hardships with a grace that spoke of her deep inner strength and unbroken spirit. The story of Rhiannon reaches a turning point when she is eventually vindicated. The truth of her innocence is revealed, and the harsh punishment is acknowledged as unjust. Rhiannon's redemption is not just a personal victory but a broader triumph over the forces that sought to break her. Her story is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest moments, the light of truth and justice can shine through. In the end, Rhiannon's story is a poignant blend of love, loss, and redemption. Her life reflects the complexities of human experience, the heights of love and the depths of despair, the harshness of punishment and the sweetness of redemption. Rhiannon's tale continues to resonate through the ages, a testament to the enduring power of love and the strength of the human spirit. Her legacy is one of resilience and hope, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming adversity, one can find a path to redemption. Rhiannon's story remains a powerful and touching reflection of the intertwined nature of love, magic, and justice, echoing through the ages with a voice that is both sorrowful and uplifting. In the heart of Africa, where the rhythms of drums blend with whispers of ancient magic, the stories of witch queens emerge, each tale a tapestry of love, power, and tragedy. These powerful women, wielding both enchantments and authority, shape their worlds with a blend of fierce love and formidable magic. Their lives, marked by dramatic highs and devastating lows, reveal the profound impact of their passions and their struggles. Among these storied figures is the legendary Queen of Sheba, whose name evokes visions of opulence and wisdom. Her love story with King Solomon of Israel is one of intrigue and deep emotion. The queen, a sovereign of great power, was captivated by Solomon's wisdom and allure. Their relationship was a blend of political alliance and genuine affection, a powerful partnership that bridged cultures and kingdoms. Yet, the romance was fraught with complications. The love between them, though profound, was shadowed by the demands of leadership and the challenges of their respective realms. Their tale is one of deep connections and ultimate sacrifices, a reminder of the personal costs that accompany great power and influence. Another captivating tale is that of the powerful witch queen, Mami Wata. Revered in many African cultures as a goddess of water and beauty, Mami Wata's story is a powerful blend of love and sorcery. She is often depicted as a stunning figure with both human and serpentine qualities, commanding both reverence and fear. Her relationships, marked by enchantment and turmoil, reveal the challenges faced by those who wield immense power. Mami Wata's love affairs are not merely romantic but are intertwined with her mystical influence over water and fertility. The depth of her affections is matched by the tragedies that befall those who try to capture her heart. Her story is a poignant reminder of the price of desiring something so powerful and elusive. The tragic figure of the witch queen Nyasantawa, ruler of the Ashanti Empire, stands as a powerful example of a queen's sacrifice and love for her people. Fierce and commanding, Nyasantawa led her kingdom against British colonial forces in the Ashanti-British War of the Golden Stool. Her love for her people and her kingdom drove her to resist colonial domination, facing overwhelming odds with unmatched bravery. Her tale is one of unwavering commitment, as she fought not only for her kingdom but also for her people's right to live with dignity and freedom. Her tragic downfall came with her eventual capture and exile, yet her legacy lives on as a symbol of resistance and the cost of loving one's homeland so deeply. In the folklore of the Zulu people, the story of the witch queen Mkabayi is both awe-inspiring and heartrending. Mkabayi, a powerful woman of wisdom and magic, was known for her fierce leadership and her profound, though often tragic, love. Her tale intertwines with the politics of her time, where her influence and her romantic entanglements shaped the fate of kingdoms. The sacrifices she made for love and power highlight the emotional toll that such a life exacts. Mkabayi's story is a testament to the personal cost of leadership and love, reflecting both the grandeur and the sorrow that accompany her powerful position. These tales of African witch queens reveal a rich tapestry of love, magic, and power. Each story is marked by its own unique blend of enchantment and tragedy, showcasing the incredible strength and vulnerability of these powerful women. Their love shaped not only their personal lives, but also the fate of their kingdoms. These stories are a poignant reminder of the complex interplay between affection, authority, and the sometimes harsh reality of their world. In their tales, love is a powerful force that drives both triumph and disaster. Whether it is the allure of forbidden romance or the sacrifice for a greater cause, these witch queens embody the emotional depth and complexity of their stories. Their lives are etched with moments of profound beauty and heartbreaking sorrow, reflecting the powerful and often tragic nature of their existence. On a chilly October night in 1692, the small town of Salem, Massachusetts, became the backdrop for a heartbreaking saga of love, fear, and betrayal. The Salem witch trials, a dark chapter in history, were not just about accusations of witchcraft, they were also about the tangled webs of human emotions that led to tragic endings. In the midst of the trials, love and betrayal collided in the most devastating ways. The young girls who first cried witch were driven by a mix of fear, jealousy, and personal vendettas. Their accusations were not only about ancient magic, but also about personal grievances and unspoken desires. Among these girls was Ann Putnam Jr., a girl whose accusations led to the arrest and execution of many, including people she once loved. Ann's story reflects the tangled relationships and unspoken tensions of the time, where love could quickly turn into a weapon of destruction. One of the most poignant tales from this period is that of Rebecca Nurse, a beloved and respected member of the Salem community. Rebecca's story is one of tragic irony. A woman known for her kindness and love was accused of witchcraft by those she had once helped. The love she had for her family and her community was met with betrayal and cruelty. Her trial and execution were not just about the fear of witchcraft, but also about the betrayal of trust within a tight-knit community. Her family's pain was palpable as they watched a loved one suffer for crimes she did not commit. Then there is the heartbreaking story of John Proctor, a farmer whose love for his wife, Elizabeth, was tested in the most harrowing way. John's refusal to falsely confess to witchcraft was driven by his desire to protect Elizabeth and their family. The couple's love was a beacon of strength amid the chaos, but it was not enough to shield them from the horrors of the trials. John's courage in standing up against the false accusations and his ultimate sacrifice were acts of profound love and bravery. His refusal to save himself by lying led to his execution, leaving Elizabeth and their children to mourn a husband and father who died for the truth. Elizabeth Proctor's own story is one of enduring love and suffering. Imprisoned and facing the fear of losing her husband, Elizabeth's heartache was compounded by the knowledge that her own accusations could lead to more deaths. Her strength in the face of such despair showed the depth of her love for John and her family. Her eventual release, after John's execution, left her with the haunting memories of the trials and the love she lost. The trials were marked by a web of betrayal that spread through Salem like wildfire. Neighbors turned on each other, fueled by fear and suspicion. One of the most tragic betrayals was that of the Reverend Samuel Parris, whose own niece, Abigail Williams, was at the center of the accusations. Abigail's accusations led to the arrest and execution of many innocent people, including those she once cared about. The personal and emotional turmoil that fueled these accusations turned love and friendship into instruments of devastation. The Salem witch trials were a time of intense fear and suspicion, where love was overshadowed by betrayal and treachery. The emotional stories that emerged from this dark period reflect the deep pain and suffering of those caught in the web of accusations. The trials were not just a historical event, but a tragic reminder of how fear and distrust can destroy the bonds of love and community. The stories of those who suffered during the trials echo with the heartache of love lost and trust betrayed, making them poignant reminders of the enduring impact of these dark times. Imagine a world where love could be summoned with a whisper, a spell, or a carefully crafted ritual. For centuries, pagans and practitioners of ancient traditions have believed in the power of magic to influence the heart. Love spells have been a part of their rituals, promising to bring together lovers, mend broken hearts, or ignite passion. Yet, behind these promises lay a web of emotional turbulence and unintended consequences. In ancient times, love magic was intertwined with daily life and spiritual practices. It was not just about attraction, it was about binding souls and ensuring harmonious relationships. For some, the desire for control over their love life led them to seek out charms, potions, and spells designed to bring their heart's desire into their arms. These spells often used symbols of fertility, herbs, and personal items like hair or pieces of clothing. The belief was that by harnessing these magical tools, one could weave fate itself. One poignant story from history tells of a woman in medieval Europe who, desperate to win the heart of her distant love, performed an elaborate ritual. She created a charm from herbs, recited incantations, and waited. The spell seemed to work at first. Her beloved grew closer. But soon, the love that was summoned through magic began to wane, as it often does when forced by external means rather than genuine emotion. The woman's initial joy turned into despair when the love she had sought through magic began to feel hollow and strained. Her heartache was a tragic reminder of the dangers of trying to control love, rather than letting it grow naturally. Another tale comes from ancient Greece, where a famous sorceress was said to have cast a spell to make a powerful man fall in love with her. The magic worked, but the man's feelings, manipulated by magic, never carried the depth of genuine affection. His love was fleeting and soon replaced by a sense of betrayal once he discovered the spell. This story illustrates a fundamental truth about love magic. When affection is conjured rather than earned, it often lacks the sincerity needed to sustain a lasting bond. In the early modern period, as Europe grappled with witch hunts and accusations of sorcery, love spells became entangled in allegations of witchcraft. Women, often those on the fringes of society, were accused of using love magic to manipulate powerful men or to disrupt marriages. The repercussions for these women were dire. The love spells, which were intended to bring happiness, instead brought ruin, as accusations of witchcraft led to torture, imprisonment, and execution. The tragic irony of these cases was that the spells, meant to foster love, became the very source of suffering for those who used them. The history of love magic also reveals a cycle of hope and despair. The promises of love spells are seductive, offering the possibility of controlling one's romantic destiny. Yet, these promises often come with unintended consequences. Relationships that start with a magical push may struggle to find genuine connection. Love that is artificially created may lack the depth and mutual understanding necessary for a lasting partnership. The stories of those who used love spells often end in heartbreak as they confront the limits of magic and the complexities of true emotion. In many pagan traditions, the practice of love magic was also about seeking divine intervention. Practitioners might invoke deities associated with love and desire, hoping for their favor. Yet even in these cases, the outcomes could be unpredictable. Deities known for their passion and power were not always predictable in their responses to human pleas. The spells and rituals performed to gain their favor sometimes resulted in unforeseen consequences, teaching the painful lesson that divine intervention in matters of the heart is not guaranteed. Love magic, with all its promises and perils, serves as a powerful reminder of the complexities of human emotion. The history of these spells is filled with stories of hope turned to heartbreak, of desire that led to despair. The magic that was supposed to bring happiness often ended up revealing the raw truth about love's vulnerabilities. The journey through the realm of love magic is one of profound emotions and poignant lessons, illustrating the delicate balance between desire and reality. In the silent hours of night, when shadows play tricks on the mind and the air grows chill, there are stories of witches who linger beyond the grave, forever in search of their lost loves. These ghostly figures are more than mere specters. They are trapped between worlds, their souls bound by an undying love that even death could not erase. One such tale is that of the spectral witch who wanders the misty moors of Scotland. She was a powerful enchantress in life, devoted to a mortal whom she loved deeply. When he was taken from her by an untimely death, her grief and rage twisted her magic into something dark and sorrowful. Unable to move on, she became a ghostly presence, roaming the moors with a mournful wail. The locals speak of her as a mournful figure in a tattered gown, her eyes filled with endless sadness. On foggy nights, her presence is felt by those who walk the moors alone, as if her love is reaching out, seeking something or someone to ease her eternal pain. Another haunting legend comes from the heart of Eastern Europe, where a witch's love defied the boundaries of the living world. Her story speaks of an intense, forbidden romance with a nobleman who could never be hers. After his death, the witch's despair turned her into a vengeful spirit. Bound by the chains of unfulfilled love, she became known for haunting the castle ruins where her lover once lived. Her apparition is said to appear on moonlit nights, drifting through the halls as though searching for her lost love. The castle's cold, drafty corridors are said to echo with her cries, and those who dare to explore the ruins often feel an icy touch, as though the ghostly witch is brushing against them, her sorrowful search never ending. In the American South, the ghostly witch of New Orleans is another tragic figure. Known for her beauty and her potent magic, she fell in love with a man from a high society she could never fully belong to. Their love, though deep, was doomed by societal barriers and the cruel hands of fate. After her death, she became a ghostly figure, said to appear at the stroke of midnight by the old oak tree where they first met. Locals whisper that her spirit can be seen dancing alone beneath the moonlight, her sorrowful eyes scanning the crowd for the face she will never see again. Her story is a somber reminder of how love can become a haunting presence, an eternal quest for what once was but can never be again. In the folklore of ancient Japan, a ghostly witch's tale intertwines with the supernatural. She was a powerful sorceress who fell in love with a man of higher rank who could not return her affections publicly. After her death, her spirit became a legend, her longing for her lost love transforming into a spectral curse. Her ghost is said to appear on stormy nights, drifting through the ancient forests where she used to practice her magic. Those who encounter her speak of a chilling wind and a whispering voice, full of regret and yearning. Her presence is a haunting reminder of the fine line between love and obsession, and how the latter can bind souls beyond death. These ghostly tales reveal the thin line between love, obsession, and the supernatural. For these witches, death did not bring peace, but rather an endless pursuit of what they lost in life. Their stories echo through time, carried by the wind and whispered in the dark, as warnings of how powerful love can become when it is not allowed to rest. The sorrow of their eternal quest becomes a part of their legend, a chilling testament to the idea that some loves are so profound, so consuming, that even death cannot sever the ties that bind. Their stories are not just about the supernatural, but about the profound emotional turmoil of love that transcends the boundaries of life and death. In every corner of the world, the tales of witches and their tragic romances echo with a haunting beauty that touches the very core of human emotion. From ancient myths to folklore and beyond, these stories weave a rich tapestry of love, loss, and the intricate workings of the human heart. Consider the spectral witch who wanders the moors, eternally searching for a lost love. Her story is a poignant reminder of how love can become a consuming force, one that lingers long after the heart should have let go. She embodies the idea that love, when unfulfilled, can stretch beyond the bounds of life, turning into a restless, sorrowful presence. Her tale speaks to a universal truth: love can be so profound and consuming that even death cannot extinguish its flames. Then there's the ghostly witch of Eastern Europe, bound to the castle ruins where her lover once lived. Her sorrow transforms into a chilling presence, drifting through the ruins, seeking what she lost. Her story captures how love can morph into something almost supernatural when it is thwarted by fate or circumstance. It's a stark reminder of how deeply love can affect us, leaving behind traces that linger in the places we once cherished. In New Orleans, the tragic tale of the witch who dances alone beneath the old oak tree reflects the way love can bind us to certain moments in time. Her nightly dances are not just about a longing for a past love, but also about the unfulfilled potential of what could have been. Her story speaks to the heartache of dreams never realized, and how the memories of those dreams can become an eternal part of our existence. The Japanese witch, whose love became a spectral curse, demonstrates the dangerous intersection between love and obsession. Her haunting presence in the stormy forests serves as a chilling metaphor for the destructive potential of unrequited love. Her story warns of how love, when turned inward and distorted by grief, can become a force of torment and despair, affecting not just the lover but also those around them. Through these tales, one can see the common threads of human emotion that bind us all: the depth of love, the agony of loss, and the complexities of the human heart. These witches, bound by their intense emotions and magical powers, reflect the universal experience of love's highs and lows. Their stories are not merely supernatural accounts, but are deeply human, revealing how love and loss intertwine in our lives. These tragic romances teach us that love, in all its forms, has the power to shape our destinies, sometimes in ways we cannot fully control or understand. The witches' stories remind us that love can transcend physical boundaries, becoming a powerful force that lingers in the places and memories where it was once felt most deeply. Their tales highlight the enduring allure of love and the pain that accompanies its loss, reflecting the timeless struggle between our desires and the harsh realities of life. In every culture, these stories of witches and their tragic loves resonate because they touch on something profoundly human: the longing for connection, the ache of separation, and the struggle to find meaning in our deepest emotions. The witches, with their magical abilities and enduring love, serve as symbols of our own experiences with love and loss, showing us that these feelings are universal and timeless. These tales, woven into the fabric of human history and culture, continue to captivate us because they reflect the deepest parts of our own hearts. They remind us that, no matter how far we travel or how much time passes, the themes of love, loss, and the search for meaning remain as relevant as ever. Through the witches' stories, we are reminded of the powerful, often heartbreaking, beauty of human emotion and the ways it shapes our lives, even as we seek to understand its complexities.